Good afternoon, happy fall, happy November. Welcome to the IELCE Civics Network meeting for California. I'm Lori Howard, CASAS Program Specialist Coordinator, and I'm here today with Portia LaFerla, our CIT Program Specialist, and I'm sure some other program specialists as well. And we have some guest speakers as well I'll be telling you about in a moment. Please type your name and agency in the chat box so we can keep track of your attendance. And after the meeting, I think you have, or actually, I think if you could do it during the meeting, that would be helpful. If you haven't already registered for this meeting, please register at caadultedtraining.org. They're only keeping it open now through the meeting. And if you're not receiving a meeting reminder, for example, if you did not receive one this Monday from me personally, lbhoward@casas.org, then email me your email address and I'll put you on my list. Please don't put it in the chat. Please email me at lbhoward@casas.org, or you can always also contact me and Portia at elcivics@casas.org. So let's get started. We have a short informational meeting today, and then we have two wonderful presentations. So we're going to start with a CDE update. We're going to talk a little bit about civic participation and IELCE. Portia will tell you about citizenship preparation. And then we have two presentations, one by Anthony Burek from, I put OTAN, but I guess it's really SCOE. Forgive me, Anthony. AI use in IELCE Civics instruction and assessment. And he is the coordinator of distance learning projects. He's going to also talk a little bit about the IELCE Civics Exchange and some assistance that OTAN will be providing. And then we also have Paul Young from LAUSD, who is the IELCE Civics advisor and who's been working diligently on COAAPs for social and emotional learning. And he's going to tell us about what LAUSD has been doing. And then I know one or two of you have also selected those COAAPs. And if you have, we'd love you to share what you are doing with them. Anything else that should be on the agenda today? Feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself if you have something to put on the agenda. Okay, let's move ahead then. And for our CDE update. So our CDE update is information that was gleaned at the October meeting, and I'm going to tell you about the next meeting. So at the October meeting, they talked about the 23-24 local assessment policy. And you may or may not know that all agencies, WIOA 2 agencies, are required to complete a local assessment policy. And I think, and keep it at their agency on file when asked for it. This local assessment policy should, and there are questions there that you can answer, so you'll see what you need to do, but you need to describe your assessments. So your CASAS pre and post testing, and also your COAAP assessments. So briefly, how you select your COAAPs, how you administer them, the instruction, et cetera, you're going to put about how you develop your COAAPs and administer them. So that should be updated every year. I put the link here at the bottom so that will lead you to the 23-24 local assessment policy. And as I say, there's a series of questions. All you need to do is answer them and then keep that on file. Or if it says to submit it, it will be on the form itself. And it says CDE reviews these FPMs, so there's now a new signature line. So it must mean that now you need to submit them in some way. I'll find that out for you, or it should say on the form. Okay, any comments, or if Portia and or Barb or whoever is there was at the October meeting and could add to this, I'd appreciate it. Or Pat, if you're there.
Lori?
Yes.
It's Portia.
Yes.
I'm not sure what you would like to add, but part of the reason why the local assessment policy was updated was because of the new STEPS tests. And so if you look into the document, you can also see what the score ranges are for the different levels. So I think that's probably helpful.
And are they required to submit the local assessment policy? I don't think they used to be.
Not the policy, but there is a page where they do sign off about the assessment training, and the CDE will ask for that during an FPM or any kind of a monitoring visit.
Right. So that's why they need to keep it on file during their, keep it on file. And then if they're asked for it, then they display it. So that's why it should be updated every year. And the great thing about this local assessment policy, in my opinion, besides keeping track of what you're doing, is so that people in the future, next year, if you happen to retire or you change positions, then everything is there for the next person to read about how assessment is done at your agency, both for CASAS pre and post testing, for CIT testing, for COAAP system testing. So all of that is there, and anybody can pick it up and know how it was done and then replicate it. So that's really great.
Lori, this is Pat.
Thank you.
The reason for this local assessment policy is that our state policy that we send to the feds, and it's required by the feds, is that we need to assure OCTAE that all of our staff are well trained and are administering all of the assessments according to the test administration directions. So this in fact is an assurance at the local level that they're following all the guidelines and that it's transparent and that this is the assessment policy that the local agency is following.
Yes. And thank you, Pat. And also, so we have a question about an assessment training. So each agency is required to have at least one person from their agency take the training. And Portia, could you tell us a little bit about the training that they are required to take?
It's the implementation training. There's one person per agency who must do the training every year. They can train others within their agency, but at least one person needs to go through that.
And that
the training modules are online and you can select them according to your role.
Thank you. And the training teaches you how to use the CASA system. And so that's why one person is required in case there are changes, et cetera, so that someone at the agency knows how and should be, consulted with this local assessment policy so that everybody knows that they're doing the assessments correctly. And as I said, all testing should be discussed in this local assessment policy. The CASAS pre-post test, the COAAP system testing, and the CIT testing should all be discussed. Any other comments?
This is Barbara, and you also need to make sure that you have presented that to all of anyone that has anything to do with testing and that they have signed a testing, read and signed the testing agreement, and keep those signatures because for an FPM, you may be asked for them. So even if you do them electronically, you can put them in a folder and just send them off when because that is one of the requirements that they will ask for, as Portia said.
Thank you, Barbara. And on slide 6, I'm going to go back to, I have talking about the next statewide meeting. Someone from your agency should be going to the WIOA Title II AFLA statewide network meeting so that you get all this information. The next meeting is November 7th. You can register at caadulted.org. And then you can find the recordings at this link. You can also find it in the assessment section of the CASAS website, but I give you the link here, and I will, as always, send those of you who are on my list the slides from this meeting, and the recording from this meeting will be on the IELCE Civics support channel. At the last meeting on October, I'm not sure what date it was, October 6th perhaps, the assessment policy was discussed, and I'm sure it will be discussed again. But feel free to look at it, and if you have any questions, contact your program specialist about that or your CDE consultant. And I think Portia is answering a few questions about the assessment training. So, you may not know who that person is designated, to attend that implementation training, but it's good to know, and you may want to attend it at some point if you haven't already, so that you have all the information you need to, if you are planning testing. Also, one person attending is one of the deliverables. So records are kept of one person attending from each agency. And so you will be, your agency will be done for this, to attend this training if someone hasn't done it. So I'm sure most of your agencies have done it or will do it this year. You have from July 1 to June 30th to do it, but it's behooves you to do it early in the year so that you can be offering your testing appropriately. Any other questions about the local assessment policy or about implementation training? Okay, so that's the local assessment policy slide. This is what the assessment policy looks like, the guidelines, and there are questions, et cetera. And again, here's the link to the assessment policy that you can check out. And of course, this should be filled out with coordinators, administrators, et cetera, looking at these documents. I also wanted to let you know, this came out also in the statewide meeting, that ITIN numbers, individual taxpayer ID numbers, are now authorized for California EDD data match, effective July 1st, 2023. And students that provide the ITIN in TE are exempt from the employment and earnings survey, just like the ones that provide the Social Security number. And just to let you know, Paul Young at LAUSD is working on a COAAP for the ITIN. And so we hope to be bringing that out in the next month or two, so that if you want to work with your students on getting an ITIN number, you can use the COAAP to assist you. He might mention that in his presentation also. So that's the CDE update. Any questions about CDE information? Okay, let's talk a little bit about civic participation and IELCE. Let me just check my messages. Sorry here, I haven't been keeping up. And I know, good, so Portia has been putting links in the chat, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you so much, Portia and Barbara. Okay, just want to talk a little bit about IELCE Civics placement. This came up after the August 30th meeting, I think, perhaps when we weren't recording, talking about IELCE Civics and ESL placement. So placement into ESL and IELCE Civics classes has always been an assessment that should include multiple measures. So not only perhaps are you giving the COSAS listening test or the COSAS reading test, but you should be evaluating your students in other modalities, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, in order to place them appropriately into ESL classes. We all know that some students study in their home countries and perhaps read really well, but don't speak at all. Even though they might be test out of our reading test, they shouldn't be necessarily placed in an advanced ESL class. So I think that makes sense to ESL teachers, that we would be looking at all of the skills and making a judgment as to where the student can best learn what he or she or they need to learn. So I want to draw your attention to this link. It's Appendix B of the new Educational Functioning Level Descriptors for Adult Basic Education and English Language. That's part of, well, that came out from the NRS, but it's based on the English Language Proficiency Standards. So they give you descriptions of what students should know when they finish a level. And that's what you should be using to evaluate your students as to the levels that you are preparing and how you plan your levels. Beginning low, beginning high, intermediate low, intermediate high, and advanced. You should be looking at these educational functioning levels to plan your instruction and your curriculum for that level in your class. If you do that, then the levels that are listed in the COAAPs will match, okay? And just to repeat, I think I mentioned this at the August meetings, that you should evaluate your students at the beginning of their attendance in your class, and that's the level you should use to select the level of COAAP tasks they are completing and the rating scale you will use for them. So in a class that you've named beginning low, for example, and you've followed these educational functioning levels, you can test everyone at the beginning low level. But if you have a multi-level class, you need to identify at the beginning of the term what level each student is, and then use that level to give them their COAAP tasks and rating scale. Once they've completed a certain amount of instruction and you move them to the next level, then that level is used for subsequent tests and changes appropriately as the student moves from level to level. I hope that's clear. Let me see if I can drop that link in the chat. If I can't do it right, let's see, here it is. Okay, so this link takes you to what's posted on the CASAS website. Let's see if I can, there we go. And here's the link. Okay, I'm not sure if you're seeing, let me just do a new share here so you're seeing it. So here's the document that you'll find on the CASAS website. It's in the first box. It has a gray header. It's listed there, but this link takes you to the CASAS website. And if you can see, whoops, let's see if I can get into this document a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So it has basic descriptors, but then here we go. ESL, beginning ESL literacy, the ability, what students can interpret, how they can, what language they can produce, etc. Then low beginning, they call it level 2, but we would call it low beginning ESL, and what they're able to interpret, what they're able to produce at the end of the course. So this is the content of the course that you would be teaching. So I hope you'll look at that and hope you're familiar with the English language proficiency standards and this document. Okay, and we can talk more about this at the end of the meeting. As always, I'll stay on the line after we finish the recording. If you have any specific questions, we can go back to this information. Okay, but right now, let me reshare my slides. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. Hope you're seeing that now. I think I've talked about all of that. Okay. And I also want to mention that, you know, our system, our electronic system is really great, but it doesn't keep track of your specific agency, knowing how many COAAPs you've submitted, et cetera. So when it says the IELTS Civics webpage gives pop-up messages for the following situations and others, but these are the most common. If you are selecting fewer than 3 or more than 10 COAAPs, you need permission. Now, at this time of year, if you are just selecting one and you plan to select between 3 and 10 in the next few months, you don't have to ask for permission. But if you decide this year you're only going to do 1 COAAP, or that you want to do more than 10, you need to ask permission of your CDE consultant, not your program specialist, your CDE consultant. It's great to CC elcivics@casas.org so that we can keep track of that. So if you get a pop-up for that, or you've selected more than 1 COAAP per civic objective, you need to get permission from elcivics@casas.org for that. As you work with the system and submit something else or remove something, you're going to see these pop-ups. If you've already gotten permission, just ignore the pop-up. You don't have to keep worrying about it because you know that you've had permission. Okay. That's just what I wanted to tell you about that. So I can't stop the pop-ups from coming, but just know if you've already completed what the pop-up asks you to do, you don't have to worry about it. You just ignore it and go on. And also don't forget to go to checkout. Okay, that's one of the problems we've had, is people do something in the website, but then they don't go to checkout. Only if you go to checkout, just like registration for this training today, if you don't go to checkout, you won't have completed the submission. Any questions about the pop-up messages? Okay, I just wanted to say yesterday was the deadline for at least 1 COAAP to be submitted. We're really doing great. We only have about 15 agencies that have yet to meet the deadline. If you're one of them, please just submit anything. You can always change it. The purpose of this deadline is to know that someone from your agency can access the system, so we know that you're on board with your COAAPs for this year. Okay, you can always make changes up until April 30th. That's a hard deadline. That's the last day to add, edit, or delete. And remember, once you've submitted, you need to download the COAAPs, and there are instructions on the CASAS website how to download the COAAPs in TE. That's the only way TE knows that you've made your selection, when you've downloaded, and that allows you to submit your pass and fail and gain your payment points. So be sure to submit or download into TE. Any questions? Okay, I just want to brag a little bit. We're doing really great. One of our charges from the CAPE initiative was to be serving the needs of our students and agencies by developing new COAAPs where needed. So last year we had a number of new COAAPs, and this year we've just in this time frame we already have 6 new ones. Last month when I showed you this, there were fewer over here on the 23-24 side, and I had neglected to put the little sword, which means it's 243 funded. So now I've added that. So you might want to look at these, and thank you to Whittier and Santa Ana College and Mount Diablo and LAUSD and Napa Adult School and Castro Valley for either writing new COAAPs or adjusting current ones to be more usable. Again, many of these COAAPs were written at the beginning of this grant period in the early 2000s, and so we want to update them. If you think things need to be tweaked, let us know at elcivics@casas.org, and we'll help you, or we'll do it, or we'll help you do it. If it's a minor tweak, we do it. If it's something you want to write new for your students or change tasks, we'll help you do it. So we encourage you to utilize this dynamic system in a dynamic way by changing it to meet the needs of your agency, your students. And if you want to do that, if you want to develop a new COAAP or revise one that's already there, then you can look at what's there, select from various tasks that are already there, or write new tasks to meet students' needs. You just need to make sure that any COAAP that you do write or discuss changing challenges the students at all levels. If you want to do that, you just write a brief description. Don't get too detailed at first because we want to make sure we can approve it. So write a brief description, submit it to elcivics@casas.org. Then we will work with you to get it finished. And once it's approved, in general, we have been recently submitting them into the pre-approved so that everybody can use them. So that's most likely what will happen if it meets the needs of more than just your agency. Is there anybody here that would like or is thinking about making a revision or writing a new COAAP? Besides Paul Young, who I know is working on the ITIN.
Hi, Lori. One sec. We are looking into some of the objectives, and we would like to make some revisions. So I will be communicating with you probably by end of November.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catalin. And also remember that we'd love you to, as you write your new instructional materials, to make them accessible so that we can submit them to the Civics Exchange. And Anthony Burek is going to be talking about that and how he can assist you in making them more accessible. So thank you. And please remember, we learned last year from Penny that if we start at the beginning with a sort of a template that is accessible, then it's on the easy side to make our instructional materials accessible. We want them to be accessible to our students and to our fellow colleagues. So it's important to make them what we call 508 compliant. And he'll be talking about that. Thank you, Catalin. And here we have remind you of our Civics Exchange. We do have a number of materials. We want more. We've had really great downloads. In other words, many of you have downloaded materials from August through now, and we're so happy that you've utilized these instructional materials at your agencies. And we want to have this site be even more usable and submit more things. So again, if you are creating instructional materials, we'd love to have you post them on the Civics Exchange, and please ask for our assistance to do that. I just wanted to put this slide again about the various ways you can access information about Civics. We have our Civics website here at the top. You can always email questions to elcivics@casas.org. Many webinars. This one I just redid in September. The basic information about civic participation and IELCE and CAPE requirements. But they're all here for you on the IELTS Civics website. You also find a lot of information on the IELTS Civics support channel here. And our meetings, again, if you want to get on the mailing list, please email elcivics@casas.org and I'll put you on the mailing list. And please register for the meeting if you're here and haven't done it, or any future meetings at here, caadultedtraining.org. And also you can register for the statewide meeting at the same link. So I think I'm done with the IELTS Civics information. Any questions about that? So I'm going to hand it over to Portia to tell us about citizenship preparation. Thank you, Portia.
Thank you, Lori. So there are 2 CASAS tests that you can use to earn payment points for citizenship preparation. The first one is the citizenship interview test, which is a one-on-one interview that simulates the USCIS interview. And it's based on the questions, about the N400 application for naturalization. It isn't exactly the same as what the student will experience, but it gives the opportunity to practice the kinds of questions and vocabulary that are necessary to pass that test. And a student who passes this test is likely to pass their USCIS interview. The students must reach a score of 206 or above in order to pass. This is not a pre-post test. They only need to pass once. There are 2 forms, so if the student doesn't pass the first time, you can give them some more instruction and then test them with the alternate form. Next slide, Lori. I think we need to go one more, Lori. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yes, no, go back. You were right. I'm sorry, I had 2 screens going. So in order to offer the SIT, you must have at least one person who is a certified examiner. And that's necessary to offer the test and to earn the payment points. If you would like to become a SIT examiner, then you go to the CASAS website, the link is in the slides, and order the training. There's no charge to WIO2 funded agencies for that. It's a little bit confusing sometimes when you go in to register for that, because it asks you for a PO or it asks you for some account information that you don't need to provide. So there's a little tiny video in the second link here that says SIT interview test certification and recertification. And it's just a few minutes and it shows you exactly how to go through that registration process. Next one. The certification is a 1-year certification, although you get a bit more than that the first year that you certify. And then the certification expires on June 30th of each year. You have between January and April 30th to recertify, and it's an online process. The certification process takes about, I would say, 4 hours. If you're careful, you go slowly, you pay attention to what you're doing, you can get through it in about that amount of time. The recertification takes about 2 hours. When you certify, the process, the course gives you links to download scoring guidelines and scoring anchors. And when you score, you should always refer to those documents. Never try to depend on your memory, because you have to score in a way that is consistent with what generally is an acceptable score for an answer. So always depend on those guidelines and you'll get through it better and you'll be a more effective scorer. If you need to recertify, you will get an email in January. Go ahead.
Portia, can I add, when you're testing a student, you can have those documents in front of you. So don't worry about, you have to remember all of that stuff.
Yes, and I've scored hundreds and hundreds of these, and I never score without looking at the documents, and I never answer a question without looking at the documents. I think sometimes people just feel like they need to memorize it because it's a test, but that is not the case. Always refer to these documents. They're really, really helpful. Okay, and the next one, Lori. You can test the SIT oral interview can be tested remotely. If you're going to test remotely, you can order a fillable PDF. Generally, it's done face-to-face, and you would use booklet 973 or 974 for that. Remember, the PDF is only for remote testing. It is not for face-to-face testing. And there is a question in the chat. If there's a requirement for a number of hours of instruction, there is not a required number of hours. They should receive sufficient instruction to have mastered the content and to have a likelihood of passing the test. And that's a little bit different for all students. A beginning student will probably need more time than an advanced student. And I think the next one, Lori. The other test that earns payment points is the Government and History for Citizenship test. And that one is a listening test, and it's based on the 100 questions from the USCIS. So the students hear the question, and then they have choices for the answer. They need to choose the correct answer. This can be done remotely using a flash drive that you order from COAAP, and that is only for remote testing. But the best way to offer the test is through e-testing. And again, the student will pass with a score of 206 or above. It's not a pre-post. They just need to pass one of the two forms. And then once they, if they don't pass the test again, you would offer them additional instruction until they have the likelihood of passing, and then you can test them again. Next one, Mike. In order to earn these payment points, the student must be enrolled in a class that is designated 231 Citizenship Preparation. And then they must have a valid pre-post test pair. It could be STEPS, Life and Work, Reading for Citizenship for this year, but make sure it's same pre-post, same test, same modality. Not, you can't mix STEPS and Life and Work. You can't mix reading and listening. COAAP is aware that there is a naturalization test redesign trial period. COAAP is monitoring that. And if you would like more information about that, you can go to the link that's on this one. And when Lori sends the slides out, you'll have that link. I'm also going to put a link in the chat for the the Citizenship YouTube channel. There are lots of good presentations there. I'm not sure that worked. Well, I'm not sure that worked, but I'll try it again after I finish. I'll drop that link one more time. Any questions about citizenship and offering citizenship for your agencies? You can always email cit@COAAP.org for any questions about citizenship. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Portia. Appreciate it. And so just some other information. To our dates for upcoming meetings. Our next meeting is December 6th from 1 to 2:30, and the subsequent one is on January 24th. If you haven't yet done so, please type your name and agency in the chat box and register for this meeting. Again, you have within the meeting to do it. So if you can just go do it and register, that would help a lot. So now we are ready for our well, first of all, any questions? And again, I'll stay online after our presentations are finished in case you have any specific questions. But now let's move to our presentations. We are so lucky today to have two presentations, and our first is going to be from Anthony Burek. And he is from OTAN, so that's great. Coordinator Distance Learning Projects, and here's his email. And he also gave us the bit.ly for his handout, so you can go there right now. I will see if I can, I will see about, I will put that on in the chat while he's talking, or Anthony, if you're going to do it, that's great. And I will stop sharing, Anthony, so that you can share. And welcome, and thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you so much, Lori. Thanks, friends at CASAS. Hi, everyone. Anthony Burek over at OTAN, Coordinator for Distance Learning Projects. So excited to see my IELCE Civics family. Some of you know that when I was back at Mount Diablo many years ago, I was the IELCE Civics lead. And so this is my crowd. My heart goes out to all of you. Also, so great to see many of you last week at either the Cape Summit down south or the Cotiso State Conference up north. There was a lot of some IELCE Civics sessions there, ESL sessions. Great to see many of you hear from you, go to your presentations. Thank you so much for sharing with the field your expertise. So I did put a link to my handout in the chat. It is the bit.ly link, bit.ly/, and then after the slash, it is case sensitive. So capital OTAN, OTAN, and then capital EL, capital Civics with the C, and then 11/23, November 2023. And for those of you who aren't familiar with OTAN, we are a state leadership project along with CASAS for California Adult Education. There actually are 3 state leadership projects, CASAS, OTAN, and CalPro. We are all here to support you all in the field. OTAN's focus is on technology training for adult education and helping you all to integrate and apply technology in your classrooms with your teaching staff for the benefit of your students and your the folks who you serve at your adult ed agencies. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. Lori already, and let me go ahead and share that document to make sure I'm on the right screen actually here. Share that document that Lori mentioned earlier and that I linked to in the chat. So I'm here to talk about a couple of things that we're working on over at OTAN, and hopefully I will not go over into my friend Paul Young's presentation time. Paul, you give me a warning and you let me know if I'm taking minutes away from your presentation. So, all right. So Lori actually touched on the IELTS Civics Exchange a little bit earlier, but I did want to just talk a little bit more about that. Hopefully, if you haven't by now, you've had a chance to go to the IELTS Civics Exchange. And if you go to the OTAN website, I have a link here in the document so you can get there directly. It's elcivics.otan.us. But if you go to the OTAN website, which I will go to right now, this is the OTAN website, otan.us. We have lots of resources there for y'all, so make sure you come back and visit our website. But under the resources tab, we do have a link to the IELTS Civics Exchange. And then once you get there, Lori showed you a screenshot earlier, but this is the IELTS Civics Exchange. It's really meant as a sharing space for all of us. We all know that we're developing a lot of IELTS Civics materials back at your agencies, and for many years now, we've had the discussion about being able to share these resources amongst ourselves, so that at least, we're not all starting from, kind of square one when it comes to actually developing the resources back at our agencies. We want to be able to sort of look and see what other folks are up to, do some creative borrowing from others, so that the burden of actually creating the materials is not so great for any one of us. So a lot of things when you come to the Exchange should look familiar to you. So over here on the left-hand side, there's a left-hand side menu. Under instructional materials, you'll notice the 7 competency areas, and this is how IELTS Civics is organized in California. So these should look familiar to you. You can do some searching on the Exchange for resources. And just by the way, this website is sort of freely available. Any one of you can come to the Exchange right now and take a look at the resources that are currently listed there. You have the ability to do some searching also on this left-hand menu as well. In the middle here is a little bit of a write-up on the Exchange, so just kind of what the Exchange is all about. And then this is kind of the heart of the Exchange here, this instructional materials section, which actually lists the materials that are available on the site. And again, as I mentioned, anyone can come here, take a look and see what resources are available. Right now, many of us are thinking about healthcare. Hopefully, many of you are getting some of that healthcare pathway funding shortly to work on that back at your agencies. But let's go to the health section for a second here. And then these are the civic objectives that you're familiar with. So 26 through 31 and 46 and 55. And then once you dig into any one of the civic objectives, you should see the COAAPs that are listed under that. So let's just take a look at 27 here. So right now we don't have a lot of materials on the Exchange. We're always, Lori and Portia and myself and many of us are always encouraging agencies to consider adding your materials to the Exchange so that, again, we can do lots and lots more sharing. But you'll see under Civic Objective 27, for COAAP 27.7, we actually have 2 sets of materials, one from Mount Diablo, one from LAUSD. And then you can see the materials that are listed here. There's some student practice, there's some teacher guides. It's really kind of up to the agency to decide what they would like to share. Of course, you all know as EL Civics practitioners that we can't share the actual assessments that you're going to be using when it comes time to doing assessing back to your agencies with your students. However, there are lots of practice materials, there are a lot of teaching materials, teacher guides, and other things that you can share with all of us on the exchange. As Lori alluded to earlier, there are a couple of things that we are looking for. So one is that we are looking to make sure that the materials that you include on the exchange are accessible, and by this we mean 508 compliant. So there's that. The other thing, which is easy to do, well, relatively easy to do, is to be able to attach a license to your materials that basically gives the permission to the next user to be able to use your materials kind of in a licensed way. And the license that we actually ask folks to add to their materials is quite broad. So basically it allows you to download the materials, and then you can adjust them as needed for your local context. You just want to make sure that basically you are giving credit to the agency that you are getting the materials from originally. So for example, if I were to download this first set of materials from Mount Diablo Adult, I would download them, I would bring them over to my OTAN Adult School, and then I would go ahead and OTAN Adult School does not exist, by the way. It's kind of like, what is it, Rolling Hills or Rolling Hills, right? So anyway, at the OTAN Adult School, I would make a copy of these. I would modify them for use at my adult school. However, I would put a license onto my materials that basically says that I got these materials originally from Mount Diablo with their permission. And according to the license that's there, it allows me to kind of remix and reuse them as I see fit back at over at OTAN Adult School. So making sure that you're following kind of those 2 main requirements. You submit the materials, COSAS does the first review based on the rubric, basically making sure that the content that you provide in your materials follows the rubric guidelines and attains the necessary score. And then once COSAS has had the run through of materials, they're passed over to OTAN. We do an accessibility check just to make sure everything is 508 compliant. If both of those are satisfied, those materials then are added to the exchange. If you do want to add materials to the exchange, you do want to create an account on the exchange website. Basically, you go up to this login link here and you would create an account. We just want to make sure that we have kind of the EL Civics crowd here at the exchange. But if there's any questions about that, we'll get back in touch with your agency. And then again, once you create an account, you're able to upload your materials to the exchange. But then anybody who comes to the exchange can download the materials, take a look at them, review them, ... Okay, I'm going to pause there. Any questions so far about the exchange, EL Civics Exchange? I know that Lori and Portia have talked about the exchange in previous network meetings, but maybe you have a question about the exchange.
Yeah, Anthony, this is Kathleen from Garden Grove.
Hey, Kathleen.
I do like the exchange, and we've used it before, but right now I'm having trouble getting into your bit.ly OTAN EL Civics handout. Is it capital letters? Is that right? It's OTAN is capital letters, and then EL is capital letters, and then Civics.
Yes.
1123.
Yes, it all is case sensitive after the slash. So maybe if someone wouldn't mind just copying that link that was previously up in the chat and adding it.
Anthony and I got in there, so it might be your own computer. You might want to restart or
Okay. So all right. So in other words, the one that's in the chat is correct as far as capital letters and lowercase.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen. Okay, other questions about the exchange at this point?
Anthony, could you talk about OTAN's support of making materials accessible?
Yes, so, right, thank you, Lori. Yeah, we at OTAN are more than happy to help you take a look at your materials. First of all, just to kind of see where we are in terms of the accessibility of your materials. It may be that due to the way that they were created or kind of the status of those materials that they already are accessible or close to, and maybe with a little support, we would be able to make those materials fully accessible. But also OTAN, we provide a lot of training on accessibility. We're more than happy to meet you either at your agency or we can do an online webinar. I believe at Cape Summit, we actually had, I think, 1 or 2 accessibility sessions, and look for us at conferences coming up. We also present on accessibility at conferences as well. But this is really, as Lori mentioned, this is really an important topic that we all need to be working on and addressing, not just with EL Civics materials, but with all the materials that we create at our agencies for our students and for staff and for the communities that we serve. So it's really kind of incumbent on all of us to kind of have a basic understanding of accessibility. And again, OTAN we're ready to help you with your accessibility training. Reach out to us, support@otan.us, to schedule an accessibility session training at your agency or online, and we can take it from there.
Anthony,
Yes.
the stuff I have seen so far has been very Microsoft Word focused on accessibility, and the district where I work, we are Google-fied. Do you guys have stuff about Google? Because I'm kind of trapped in Google. Because that's what everything we do is in Google now.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Sarah. So what we have found is that basically Microsoft is much more kind of accessibility ready, as it were. So it's really easy. Well, okay, sorry. It's relatively easy using Microsoft products to make them accessible. Google is not at the level of Microsoft. I think that they would be the first to admit that. We actually are starting to create some sessions here at OTAN on accessibility in Google. So we have actually, I think we have a training scheduled pretty soon, actually in a couple of weeks with an agency. I don't remember which one. But yes, reach out to us if you want to kind of explore that some more. It's something that we could also provide the field. We have a number of Google certified educators among our training staff. And so we can also see about scheduling something at the agency. Yeah, and I realize, right, many districts are all in on Google, and so basically you have to work within the parameters of Google. From our point of view on the exchange, our discussions up until now have been that we're basically focused on Microsoft creative materials and PDFs, for example, because we don't feel confident that the materials that Google creative products would meet the accessibility standards that we're aiming for. And so we can't really make those available on the exchange, only because that's our call at OTAN, is that everything that we provide on an OTAN website has to be accessible. So if we can't guarantee accessibility with Google created products, then we can't load them on to the exchange.
Right. And my problem is, I got Google, and the way I share everything with teachers is Google. We have Chromebooks. We are trapped.
We understand this. Yes. So, yeah. I mean, I can't really say much more beyond that. I mean, we're still continuing to explore this issue at OTAN, and if we figure something out or things change, just based on our understanding of accessibility in Google, we can kind of revisit that discussion and look at how do we get those materials onto the exchange. But at the moment, I guess we're also trapped as well, Sarah. So, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. Other civics questions, or sorry, other exchange questions. Okay, if not, I know that I'm running short on time here, and I want to give my friend Paul Young his due. So the second point that I just want to briefly mention before I talk about AI is some of you may know about a month or so ago, we actually sent a notice out to the field just to say that OTAN has opened up this kind of subset, for those of you using Canvas, has opened up kind of this subset within Canvas Commons a space specifically devoted to California adult education resources, Canvas materials in particular. You can read more about it on the OTAN news item that I have linked on my document here. But basically, yeah, we know that many of you or a number of you are working in Canvas right now. That's the LMS that you're working with back at your agency, or maybe you're considering using Canvas at your agency. So the Canvas Commons is basically a huge global repository of Canvas materials. And we thought that that was not adequate for the adult education field. So we're working with Instructure directly. And basically what we're doing is we are opening up this adult education focused Canvas Commons space. So you can learn more about that. All of this to say that, you know, in addition to Microsoft products and Google products, we know that some of you have some Civics materials on the Canvas. That's something that we're also looking at OTAN as well. So this might be another place where you can share some of those resources, make those available to all of us in the field here. We need to kind of talk about it more between OTAN and CASAS, how we might also, you know, make kind of, you know, let you know more about what is available on the exchange, or sorry, available on the Commons in terms of Civics materials. But I just want folks to be aware of that. Certainly more to talk about in the future, but just so folks are aware, especially if you're using Canvas. Okay, I have some time here to talk about AI, and that's kind of, I guess, where the original invitation was for, what it was for. So just by a show of hands, or somehow a digital hand or whatever, who is already using AI? Actually, let me stop sharing here for a sec so I can also see too. Who's already using AI for anything for Civics? Catalin is? Anyone else? Alejandra, I saw a thumbs up there. Anyone else? Linda says no. Jody says no, or I don't, maybe there's a previous no. Okay, so okay, I thought it might be more people, but anyway, we'll start there. Todd says he plans to. Again, those of you who were at Cape Summit last week or CATISL conference, state conference last week, you may have noticed that there were quite a few AI sessions between the two conferences. So we all know that you all are, and all of us are starting to think about this, right? How do we bring AI into the work that we are doing, or could be doing, or might be doing? So if we go back to my document for a second here, and again, if you are using AI already for Civics, if you want to put like maybe just a note in the chat or something, kind of let us know what you're working on. So we know AI is here. I mean, it's amazing that now we're going on about a year since kind of the initial frenzy started around ChatGPT. Hard to think that it's already been almost a year. So much has there's been so many discussions about AI, ChatGPT in particular, other products in particular, and I think we all have a sense that this is ground changing, what we're talking about and what we're looking at here. So really, there's no reason, in mine and other folks' estimation, that we can't bring AI into the Civics work that we're doing. So, and that's really kind of, you know, what the initial discussion here is about. So I have just kind of a couple of bullets here. I want to, you know, just kind of my initial thoughts about it. And, you know, ChatGPT has gotten a lot of press over the last year, but there are other products that are now coming to the fore. We know about Google Bard, for example. We know within Microsoft Bing that Bing is evolving to become more of an AI assistant from its traditional search role. So, and there are lots and lots of, it's amazing actually, there have been a lot of products out there already, AI related products. We just didn't know about them until ChatGPT took off, and now we know all about them. And I'm sure those of you working with AI products could probably list some of them in the chat for the benefit of the rest of us. But if we just started with ChatGPT, for example, this is my second bullet here. You really, you can create a free account at OpenAI and get started. Really, I think the charge for many people has been all of us should at least create an account and experiment a little bit, try it out, see what all the hype is about. You're not going to break anything. If anything, you might learn something. You might be amazed at what you discover. But again, for ChatGPT specifically, you start at chat.openai.com to create an account. A few weeks ago at OTAN, we did a webinar presented by Joe Marquez at Q. Q is formerly known as Computer Using Educators. Now they're just known as Q. They're a big statewide, mainly K-12, but open to everyone organization that focuses on using technology in the classroom and all that. It's very teacher-centric, that organization. But anyway, we had Joe give a presentation, and I wanted to just pull out this one slide in particular that he spent a lot of time on. Let me go ahead and open this up so we can all see it. Joe said, for all of us, we're really kind of still figuring out how this all works. How do we kind of get started with this? And like maybe we're staring at kind of a blank screen and we don't really know what to do. And so Joe gave us this slide, which I think is very good, just in terms of thinking about like how to start organizing our work within ChatGPT. So if you're looking at this slide, a blueprint for engineering a prompt. So the term is prompt engineering. So it's basically figuring out how to talk with, converse with the AI tool. He has these 6 bullets here, starting with basically what is the task or what is the ask. And it's very important to use action verbs. We know all about action verbs in ESL instruction. So this is not a mystery to what an action verb is. Really, we want the tool to do something, right? So we use action verbs to kind of structure our work. It's also important to give some context to our prompting. And so, for those of us with IELTS Civics, I think we're working within a very specific context. So being able to bring that context into the prompting that we do with the AI tool is going to be really important, right? Because we're working at all different ESL levels. Those can translate into reading levels, for example, Lexile levels, kind of think of it in that way. But definitely we want to be able to differentiate our work depending on the level, the students, what is their background, all those kinds of contextual things, that we need to add to this. It's always good to give examples as well so that the AI tool sort of has a frame of reference. And then as we work our way down the list here, these things are less important, but you may still consider these things as you're starting to work with the AI tool. So for example, you might want to take on a role. Maybe you're a teacher, you're a curriculum designer, you're an online, what am I thinking of? Online learning coordinator, something like that, right? So that you give a sense to the tool, like what your background is and sort of the direction that you're coming from in terms of your work. You can also ask for it in certain formats or, whatever's going to make it easier for you to work with. And then you also want to give it a tone or a style. And you may have heard, folks are asking these tools to write a letter, for example, like write a letter to your friend in a happy tone, on the success of their new business or something like that, right? You don't want it to just be sort of like flat, like you want it to have some emotion or excitement or whatever. And so you might consider like a tone or a style to your writing as well. So I find these steps to be very useful, like for me to kind of get started thinking about, okay, how exactly am I going to work with this AI tool to get what it is that I would like to get out of it? So taking this, what I want to do is, so once you create your, there we go. Once you create your account at ChatGPT. So this is, you come into it and this is sort of what it looks like initially. Again, it looks a bit daunting because on this screen anyway, there's not much. So you have to kind of get it going. I'll just make a note here at the very top. You may notice these 2 kind of buttons here between GPT 3.5 and GPT-4. So 3.5 is the free version of ChatGPT right now, so for free. GPT-4 is actually, I believe it's $20 a month. So it's the latest version. But I think somebody was showing me kind of what 4 looks like at the moment, and there's a lot. I mean, these things are exponential. I mean, they're just growing leaps and bounds. I mean, you'll be able to load PDFs, whole documents. I mean, all kinds of things into these tools, and they will be helping us. Or I don't. Well, I use the verb help. I don't know about helping, but they're doing something. So it's exponential, the growth here. So, but 3.5 at the moment is free. At the very bottom, this is where you're going to start your works. You send a message. So I want to show you a couple of examples of what I've done, and then I'm going to stop and turn over to Paul. But what I did was I went into, this should look familiar to you. This is the COAAP list. I'm focusing on 33 at the moment. And so I went all the way down to the last one, 33.9, and I went ahead and looked at the details of 33.9. So there, I believe, are 2 tasks in 33.9. The first one is a role play. The second one is complete a job description, application. Okay, and then this right here is super, super important. Basically, for me, this is where I pull the prompt out of, right here. So I want to show you my 2 examples quickly. So the first one was, I think it was this one. Okay, so if I have it right. So what I did was, okay, so task 1 is a role play, basically, right? So the role play is student will participate in a role play. The assessor will be the, on the opposite end. And then this is what they're going to practice in the role play. Okay, so that's basically what this is. So I went back to ChatGPT and I said, okay, and I basically took the language right from the CASAS page here, and I adjusted it a little bit, got rid of the levels just to kind of start somewhere. So create a simulated interaction between 2 people. I wanted to make sure it was clear there's a person A and a person B. So person A will request information about a job opening. Person B will play the role of the company employee. There should be 10 interactions. That's what's listed back in the COAAP, task 1. And then this is what the interactions cover. And I said, just generate a role play. Let's see what this thing looks like, right? So this is what it came back with. Person A, person B, A, B, A, B, A, B, dot, 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 dot. It basically covered all of the points that I asked for in terms of interactions, an opening, all the different questions, question and response, and then it also closed it as well. Okay, so very straightforward. Like it took me like 10 seconds to, well, not 10 seconds, sorry. It took, the most amount of time that it took was actually for me to make the prompt. This is what came back from ChatGPT within 15, 30 seconds. This is what came back. I had a whole role play ready to go. I also adjusted it to say, okay, can we change the roles here, right? So I want person A to be a construction worker. I want person B to the hiring manager of a firm. So I got a very similar kind of role play, but I changed the role from, I think the first was marketing or something or other, to construction, right? I could make as many different role plays as I want based on the number of different jobs. Basically, it's going to give me the same, it's going to follow the same format. It'll adjust it to be a little bit more industry specific, which is nice because if we're practicing in, to give it some context. But that's what I did with the role play.
How about the level, Anthony? Can you put in ESL 1, ESL 2, and will it change it?
Right. So I think that the tool needs some context. Like I think just to say ESL 1, I mean, ESL 1 between all our agencies could be all different things. I think it might be better to assign like a reading level, like a grade reading level or a Lexile level. And I was actually looking on the CASAS website. I couldn't find anything about that. And maybe CASAS friends, I don't know much about like reading levels or Lexile levels or how that corresponds with like the different CASAS levels. So
perhaps if we put in the NRS educational functioning level descriptors that,
yeah.
I would think eventually it'll be able to do this,
Yeah.
If we input that.
Anthony, may I comment? When I was at CAPE, I attended about ChatGPT Susan Gear, and she was showing us that she was very successful when she put the CFR levels in. That's when you get the best results.
What is CFR, Catalin?
It's European, right, Catalin?
Yes, the Common European. So the nice thing is all of the textbook, if you look at the back of the textbook, they have CFR A1 is the low beginning, A2 is beginning high, and they have B1, B2, C1, and C3. So if you look it up, if you Google it, the chart comes up. And but according to Susan, and that's what I've been using since Susan mentioned it, because I used ChatGPT, and now I switched to the CFL level when I'm creating lesson planning for EL Civics. So it really works. I just want
Great.
to let you know.
So Catalin, I'll talk to Susan and get that information, and I'll send it out to everyone.
Perfect. Yeah, and thank you, Catalin. And I think the point is that you need to, if you want to make that adjustment in reading level, you have to give ChatGPT some tool to work with. So whether it's CERF, whether it's NRS, whether it's just a straight like grade 1, grade 10, or Lexile level, for example, yeah.
Yeah, and Susan did all of the research already because she tried all
perfect.
of those, and so if she already did it, I didn't want to redo the whole testing.
Yeah.
I trust her on that. So if it worked and I tried it, and it really actually it worked much better than the Lexile level, by the way.
Great.
Because it takes into consideration all the language skills, not just reading. So yes, I think, and I'll get that for you and send it out to everyone. And I'll post it on the EL Civics website as well.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, Catalin. So I just want to give you the other one more example, and then I'll stop here. So the task 2 for this COAAP is completing a job application, and I focused on this first part, which is creating a level appropriate. So back to Catalin's, right? CERF levels, a level appropriate agency created employment history, right? So we should not be spending any time generating this on our own. We should go to ChatGPT, in my opinion. Anyway, so this is where I started. This was not the best prompt, but by my own admission, create a short reading passage about the employment history for a young person who has been working in retail customer service for 1 year. This is what I got back from ChatGPT, way too high for like beginning levels, right? So then I asked, because I didn't know about Catalin's suggestion about the CERF, rewrite this passage for a student at the first grade reading level. It basically took so the one thing about these tools is that they keep referring back to the previous part of the conversation, right? So they're not like, it's all kind of one flow. You sort of have to think about it as a conversation rather than a search. So it basically took what it originally generated, it scaled it down to a first grade reading level. I think for our beginning, low beginning, high level teachers, this is where we start. Like we look at the reading level, or we look at the reading passage, we make adjustments. Then I said, a student has to complete a job application after reading this passage. What questions or informational items should be on the application? So now I'm thinking about the task. Like, how can I use the tool to help me make the task, right? So this is what the job application should include. I don't think this was very good because it was sort of a mix of like what would end up on the application, but also like what a student, what a teacher should be looking for in terms of reading comprehension. And that's not really what the task is about. The task is being able to fill out an application after doing a reading. So I would kind of take this with a grain of salt. I actually then went back to the original reading passage and I said, oh, can you add that Sarah works at a store called Ultimate Clothing located in Sacramento, California, right? Give it the local context. And so it basically rewrote it a little bit, just putting those points in. So, okay, so all of that to say is that I think that there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of possibilities here. We can use these tools to make our work lessen the burden of our work. I know you all are busy with many things back at your agencies, but let's start thinking about how we can use these tools for the purpose of our work, so that we can make our lives easier, and really make sure that we're kind of able to, do the work we need to do, but starting to use these tools. So,
thank you so much, Anthony. I think this is really great, and I hope to discuss this more as the year goes on. This is really great so that you can develop practice materials and assessment materials, and perhaps a few versions of assessment materials so that students won't learn your assessment as the semesters go on. I think it's really helpful. And as you could see from Anthony's presentation, if you don't get what you want, you just add new information and it gives it to you again. You can keep honing it until you get what you want. And it's just a matter of practicing. I've worked on it for other writing things that I needed to do, and I think it works great. And I think Anthony's correct that this will really help us to lessen our burden in terms of creating our practice materials and our assessment materials. So thank you, Anthony, for starting out this discussion about all of this. Any last minute questions for Anthony?
Lori, I see my friend Paul Young, who's coming on to tell us all about a brand new COAAP. So I just want to put this out there. What about, how can we use AI to create COAAPs? I'll leave it at there, Paul. You can pick up the slack
To
from
create the co-op itself, yeah.
yeah, right. To make the right. I mean, folks, I mean, teachers are already thinking like lesson plans, week-long set of materials, entire curricula. I mean, well, anyway, Paul, I'll let you take it over.
Thank you so much. So let me go back first to tell you that we have Paul here. Now I have to find my slides. There we go. And just to say that Paul has been, and his agency and his team there have been working on social emotional learning, which we created a new civic objective for 55. And he and his team have created 55.1, 55.2, 55.3. And so I asked him to tell us a little bit about the creation, but most of all, the implementation of what and the result of the implementation for this. So Paul, thank you so much for attending. And please go ahead, and I'll let you share your screen if you'd like.
Yes, I would like that. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Lori. That was an amazing presentation by Anthony. I'm definitely going to look into Chat GP3, anything that will make my life easier. All right. So listen, I'm here to talk to you. I'm Paul Young, the Yale Civics Advisor for the Division of Adult and Career Education at the Los Angeles Unified School District. I want to be talking a little bit quickly because I'm looking at the clock and I don't have that much time because I want to
Paul,
give
you have 20 minutes, so take all the time you need.
Okay. I want to give you the story behind the development of the Growth Mindset COAAP and how it came into being. I want to give you an overview of the beginning high student workbook and show you the task assessments and share some student outcomes with you. It all started with our new superintendent's strategic plan. And that was the seed of this idea to create a civic objective and COAAPs around the joy and wellness pillar, the 5 pillars that comprise our superintendent's strategic plan for the 4 years between 2022 and 2026. Under the joy and wellness pillar, there are 4 priorities, one of which is social emotional learning skills. And they are defined by our superintendent as growth mindset, self-efficacy, self-management, and social awareness. And working with Lori, we have developed a new Civic Objective 55 with 4 AAPs covering the core competencies. And 5.1 growth mindset we rolled out at the end of the last school year. Self-efficacy, we have completed writing the student workbooks, tasks, and teacher guides, and they'll be coming out early January. We're currently working on self-management. Lori and her team have approved 55.3, the rubric and language and literacy objectives. And right after that, we'll be working on 55.4, social awareness. So here's what the rubric looks like at the CASA's website. It's not the whole thing. I'm just giving you a quick glimpse of it. The civic objective is here to identify and demonstrate social emotional learning skills, including growth mindset, self-efficacy, self-management, and social awareness to meet school, family, and workplace challenges. This is task 1. Students will view 2 series of pictures or read 2 level appropriate agency created scenarios about individuals with growth mindset. Student will identify the growth mindset attributes embodied by the individual in each series of pictures or scenarios in words, phrases, or sentences. So one big discussion that Lori, Portia, and I had early on about developing this COAAP is that these are concepts and they're not going to be obvious to our students. For example, this is a scenario from the task 1 assessment for beginning low and beginning high. Student reads the scenario and what they're likely to answer, the manner that they're likely to answer will be, her name is Molly. She has 4 children. She cooks and cleans. She wants to be a mechanic, but that's not the answer we're looking for. We're looking for the student to identify the growth mindset attributes. And I'm going to show you how we prepare students to do that in the student workbook. See, as you can see here, beginning high, students write 3 sentences describing her growth mindset, not identifying or citing from the text, which we usually do in ESL. And task 2 is respond to mistakes with a growth mindset. Student will read up to 5 common mistakes made at school, work, or in personal life, and write growth mindset responses to each one with phrases or sentences. And here's what the assessment looks like. I didn't pass the US citizenship test. The student might write, I'll study and take it again. But as you know, level 2 students, in most cases, will not be able to produce an authentic response like that. And so therefore, we'll show you how we prepare the students to succeed in this task by going through the student workbook with you. So this is what the student workbook looks like. It comes with a teacher's guide. Every lesson begins with a brief vocabulary exercise. And the introduction here explains what growth mindset is. It gives the students a definition. Growth mindset means your intelligence can grow, you can learn anything, you can develop skills, challenges, or opportunities. You aren't afraid to try, you're optimistic. So this is the definition. This is what growth mindset means for us. And in the earlier example of task 1 with Molly Hashemi, we were looking for the student to write, she's optimistic. She can learn anything. She can develop new skills. To cite 3 of these characteristics to describe that person in the scenario. And that would be a successful pass of task 1 assessment. So here it is again. Many of our schools are creating posters with, and this definition has sort of become like a mantra that is being repeated in classrooms across the school district, and we find that very exciting. And as you know, these are ideas, concepts, and one of our strategic instructional approaches is to create this course around one of our very own students who already possess and embody these qualities of the growth mindset. And so here is our student, Melissa, and her personal journey coming to the US, learning, growing, evolving, embodies the themes of this whole course, and the lessons are woven around 5 videos based on her story. So let's watch the first one. Oops. Before I continue, are you able to hear the sound? Can I, can someone let me know?
When you share, you can click on something about improving the audio.
That's right. Share sound, optimize video clip. Great, thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, hold on a second.
We can hear it,
My
but
name is Melissa Escobar. I'm from.
Is there a problem?
Paul, it was good. It was good.
Oh, okay. It was good. All right. Let me reshare. I thought somebody said something that.
My name is Melissa Escobar. I'm from El Salvador. I came to Los Angeles just before the pandemic and enrolled at Dorsey High School. When the pandemic happened, I didn't have a computer and internet connection. I couldn't continue studying at home. I felt sad and lost. I couldn't speak English. I didn't have any friends. I was isolated at home and depressed for a long time, until one day I told myself that I couldn't be sad forever, That will be a long time because I'm young. I remember why I had come to the United States, for the opportunities to learn and grow. I can't be afraid. I have to try. This was a challenge. I found the courage to change my thinking and started attending classes at Avon Freeman Occupational Center. Coming to school, studying, and developing new skills makes me feel better, optimistic about my future.
So that's the first of the 5 videos. Students, beginning high students, answer multiple choice questions based on the content of that video. And here's a simple growth mindset versus fixed mindset exercise. Students read these examples. I'm afraid to speak English at work because my pronunciation is bad. And they decide in which column does that sentence go and writes the sentence there. Can't talk about growth mindset without comparing it to fixed mindset. So, and the next video in this series is about her growth mindset, and it launched that video.
In school, I needed to use the computer, but I thought I will never learn. Typing was difficult and frustrating. My fingers didn't cooperate. But I didn't quit. I kept practicing every day. And now I can type. My digital skills have helped me with my studies. I can research on the internet. I learn online something new every day. To support myself, I work as a housekeeper on the weekends. Studying and working is not easy, but I have to save money for college. The university is not cheap. I don't want to rely on other people. I'm independent and responsible. I can do any career I focus on. I want to be a veterinarian, an animal doctor.
So Melissa embodies the qualities that we're teaching, and the students can vicariously experience the themes through her journey. And here's a simple conversation with substitution that uses some of that language. Face your next challenge. Challenges create opportunities. I'm not afraid to try. And we're going to talk about challenges.
Listen, there's a good chance somebody's trying to hack your website right now. You gotta.
I remember when I first arrived in the US, I was scared. Everything was in English. When people spoke to me, I didn't respond. I didn't want to be ridiculed. Sometimes there were students who spoke Spanish and they translate me what I had to do or what the teacher said. But in other classes, there was no one to translate. I knew that I couldn't count on other people forever. I had to learn myself. I started to pay attention, watch TV, listen to the radio, and read everything in English. I never gave up, and now I can read, write, and talk to American people. My grades in school improved a lot. When you have a challenge, that's your opportunity to get better, to make something positive. It isn't easy, but we are adults. It's the difficult things that we have to do. Later, you feel proud and strong. Now, when I face a new challenge, I think about the difficulties that I overcame in the past to get here, and I'm confident I can do it again.
So these videos are also subtitled in English and Spanish, and many of our students are watching it multiple times. So respond to mistakes with a growth mindset. If you recall, that was task 2. So lesson 4, in 3 steps, prepare students to pass task 2. They begin by reading a mistake that someone has made and identifying the growth mindset response. My email had mistakes, my boss was not happy. I will be more careful next time. Step 2, they read about a mistake and unscramble the words to write the growth mindset response with the correct sentence order. We didn't understand the machine's instructions and couldn't do the job right. We will ask for help next time. I didn't wash the dishes properly. I will do it again. And finally, students will do an exercise that mirrors exactly what the student looks like. They read a mistake and they choose one of these responses. I will ask for help. I will try harder next time. And of course, if the student can produce an authentic response to this mistake, that's ideal. But if not, we have these terms for them to produce. And they're all interchangeable. They work for everyone. For example, if I say I didn't pass the test, any one of these will work. I will do it again. I will practice. I will try harder next time. So these are the sentences that students need to know for the task 2. And many teachers are sharing this with on posters in their classrooms. And this is task 2. I didn't pass the U.S. citizenship test. I will try harder next time. I will practice. And now learn from mistakes, from respond to mistakes to learning from mistakes.
Imagine if the web came with a command center for your company. That's why IT leaders choose Chrome Enterprise.
The biggest mistake in my life was that I didn't believe in myself. I was a shy person and I didn't ask anyone for help. It affected me mentally. I was negative. I always say, I can do it. Over time, I learned not to be so critical of myself, and my confidence slowly grew. As I studied and began to do well at school, I started to believe in myself, to love myself. I discovered self-esteem, and now I know I can do anything I set out to do in my life. Nothing is impossible. Learning from your mistakes is not easy. It's painful. It really hurts, but you have no other choice. That's how you grow.
So we go from learning to mistakes to identify the growth mindset. If you recall, task 1 was identify the growth mindset. So in the same 3 steps, we're going to prepare students to perform on task 1. Students will read about an individual. For example, number 1, Diego believes in himself. He will reach his goal. He has a growth mindset. Mindy will get the medical assistant certificate. Correct answer is A, her intelligence can grow. And the next step 2 is exactly the same. Students will read about a person with growth mindset and unscramble these words to write the complete sentence with the proper word order. Oscar applied for a new job. He has a growth mindset. Omar tries to learn something new every day. His intelligence can grow. And here, students read the sentence and they get to choose one of these characteristics from the definition. Byron started a painting class. Guess what? All of them are correct. If the student says he isn't afraid to try, that's correct. Maybe for the student, the painting class was daunting, right? Byron started a painting class. Challenges are opportunities. His intelligence can grow. He can learn anything. And this is an activity that prepares and mirrors the students for task 1. Students read the scenario, just like the one you saw earlier, and write those growth mindset sentences to describe Min. And here they are again. They have become mantras for our students throughout the division. And this is the story that we saw earlier. Mali Hashemi has 4 children. She cooks, cleans, and takes care of her children every day. Instead of saying, her name is Mali Hashemi, she has 4 students, students will say, she's optimistic. She can learn. She isn't afraid to try. And this is the final video.
For the ones searching for the products you need, Grainger.com is always there for you.
I used to feel lost in Los Angeles. Now I know where I'm going. The library is one of my favorite places. There's so much knowledge on the shelf. History, art, science. I love books. I love to read. I learn so much. This is a beautiful place where I can study. I can concentrate. I'm proud of myself I finished the IELCE program at Avon Freeman Occupational Center, and I started the academic program to get my high school diploma. I plan to go to university. My goal is to be a veterinarian. I love animals. They make me happy, like people. Animals need healthcare and love. My intelligence is growing every day. I can learn anything I need to. I can develop new skills. Every challenge is an opportunity. I'm not afraid to try. I learn from mistakes and get better. I'm optimistic. My name is Melissa Escobar, and I have a growth mindset. I used to feel lost in Los Angeles. Now I know where I'm going.
Okay, and the final activity of the workbook is students have a checklist of aspirations: get a good job, ask for a salary raise, save money to buy a car, and they'll put it all together with the growth mindset terms to in an activity that affirms each of their own inherent growth mindset. So here's some data from the Los Angeles Technology Center, one of our 11 schools within the Division of Adult and Career Ed. Here on the upper left corner, they did the growth mindset for beginning low to beginning high students. A total of 501 students took the COAAP, and 426 passed at 85% passage rate. It's a little bit, lower than some of the other ones, but it's a brand new COAAP. There are concepts where beginning low and beginning high students have to write complete sentences to identify. So obviously that was a challenge, but we feel first time out, this is quite good, and it could only go up from here. As you can see with the upper levels, it's quite high, on par with the other COAAPs, with a mid-90s passing rate. And thank you very much. I'm 2 minutes over, so I apologize. And thank you for paying attention. We've run out of time. Feel free to email me with any questions you might have.
Sure. Paul, thank you so much. And, we started a little bit late with you. And if people are able to stay and have any questions for Paul, we'd love to go ahead and ask any questions. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you,
Paul,
Sergio.
you're getting a lot of positive feedback. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. We love seeing the videos. And anything that you're able to share, would you send to me, and I will send it out along with my notes about this meeting. We love seeing the creativity that your team has put there. We think the passage rate is very high. We usually expect about 85%.
Wow.
Of our students to pass. So, and sometimes we think that if more than that passes, we haven't created a challenging enough assessment. So let's discuss that a little bit. But and remember that students can take the assessment once and then study more to pass. And so they have another opportunity after if they do not pass the first time. So keep that in mind as you develop your assessments, that we want them to be challenging for our students. And we expect about an 85% passage rate, and then students after instruction can retake the test. And that's all available on our TE system. So Julie says, I love this COAAP. How many of you, let's raise some hands here, how many of you think you might be interested in working on social and emotional skills at your agencies and perhaps using COAAP 55.1 or some of the other ones? Okay, we have another people raising their hands. That's great. So
Fantastic.
we can be talked. We thank you so much, Paul, and your team and
You're
LAUSD
welcome.
for creating this new avenue of possibilities for our students, and we will continue to support you and perhaps give a more in-depth presentation at some future time and see if these materials are able for us to share. Remember, this is in the LA context, but the videos are terrific. And we have to talk about whether this is available on the exchange and whether we can, PDF, at least the print ones, maybe not the videos. We'll have to check about that. So we'll
Sure. Yeah, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk
I
about it.
definitely need Anthony's help in making them Section 508 compliant.
Right.
Thank
So
you,
we'll talk
Anthony.
about it
OTAN.
and see.
Okay.
So thank you so much. And
And
we'll
if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me by email. I'll be happy to talk to you. And if you're planning on writing your own social emotional learning COAAPs, I'll be happy to share any experience that we have learned along the way with you. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's challenging to do a whole new thing, and you guys did a great job. So here's Paul's email address. And again, I'll be sending you any materials I can get from both Anthony and Paul, as well as my slides. And I'll be sending you the recording as well as my slides too. And I look forward to seeing you on, if I can remember, December 6th for our next meeting. Thank you so much. If any of you would like to stay on the line, I will stop the recording now and then be here for your questions. Thank you, everyone, for participating today, and especially to you, Paul and Anthony, for your presentations.
And Lori, would you clarify for everyone that after they've taken the assessment and did not pass on that 85%, they do not have to do a full 30 hours of instruction. They just—
That's correct. They only have, if they did not pass their assessment the first time, they need additional instruction. The teacher can evaluate what instruction they need in order to pass. Remember, this is performance-based instruction, so we just need to do further instruction about what they need to learn, and then they can retake the test. It is not another 30 hours. Thank you for pointing that out, Barbara.
I just wanted especially for our new people.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording and then answer any further questions.